Standard 4 was the punctuation marks, right?
Oh, yes, God, that was so far, my most difficult, surprisingly difficult, and just like, lesson. I was surprised at how poorly I felt that the whole thing went, especially, well, anyway, I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I did read your reflection, and yeah, tell me more about why you think it wasn't great.
Oh my God, I hated it. I hated everything about it. So the thing is, we've discussed punctuation before, and like my high readiness kids, or whatever group that would be, my kids that can generally do more, they haven't really had a problem with it. Like, it's definitely easy between like, oh, are they telling or are they asking? That they easily get. And they're also very quick, and they work together well. But because this had been mostly review, I felt like, and we've done a lot of like formative assessments that showed they get it. It felt like they seemed ready to try to understand the details of it a little bit more, because they struggle with more complex sentences, and their book is introducing more complex sentences now. And so they needed more time to like sort out between periods and exclamation points too. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun time to do an activity and try to figure out those details more and look for keywords and clue words. And I also think I focused too much on trying to use the academic language and try to have them understand that. But they got confused. There were too many steps that weren't like easy enough for them to understand. The steps themselves, if they had had more time to understand and if I had explained it more, would have been okay. I feel like I waited to explain it as they were going through it, but then I only did one. And I feel like because they had different sentences in the groups, that made it more challenging, because they're like, oh, I don't have this sentence. And Sean ended up being misplaced, which was surprising because he can do it, but he wasn't paying attention. He wasn't doing his work. He didn't want to work with other students, and he couldn't do it because he didn't care about following instructions. And so then I had to move him to a lower grade, and then it just became really difficult. The whole thing became really difficult. Towards the end, actually, when we gave them an assignment at home, they showed that they could actually use it, but the activity itself just, it was a nightmare.
I think that you hit it on the head when you said time. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like from where I was watching, it didn't look as disastrous as you're making it sound. But I couldn't see what they were actually doing and see how accurate they were being. But in both this standard and the next one, I feel like you're cramming an awful lot of concept into one setting, mm-hmm. and they're struggling to keep up. And so, excuse me, sorry. I think that the problem with that is that they don't have time to really acclimate it into their schema. And so they're just kind of bouncing from one thing to another. And so in terms of the elements, I think you did a good job of planning for each of these elements, but the execution, comes from you realizing, this isn't going how I planned, because you're seeing what they're putting out, right? The output is showing you. So let's go through each of the elements. So the academic language was strong. You were sure to say punctuation, question period, identifying question words was a really good thing to do for them. How do we know it's a question mark? We hear the question word. And for kids that are ELLs, they need to know the structure of language. And so that identifying what those words are is really, really important for them. So that was a really strong element. The Wonder video, always the videos, I feel like for you, you really take advantage of and utilize and incorporate into your lesson. So that was good. I would say the academic language, I would give you an outstanding, in the technology, proficient again. I mean, the technology in order for it to be outstanding, it really needs to be interwoven through the lesson and creating that higher level thinking. And so that's how you get it to that level. Student misconceptions. Question mark. You said, where does that go? So at the beginning, you were talking about punctuation, and you said, so where does punctuation go, at the beginning or the end? And so you're checking to see if they're understanding that, which was a good thing. I feel like you're constantly kind of checking in with them as you're questioning them. So I feel like that's a proficient element. Instructional resources. You did a good job of, thinking about color and assigning a color to the punctuation and giving them some choice in doing that. I feel like that was good, but I feel like that's also where the lesson started to become rushed and kind of fell apart.
Honestly, that was one of the big hiccups too. I thought it was going to help them color code and like identify more easily, but oh my God, organizing 3 crayons for them was like the hardest thing.
Well, so maybe how do you think you might have approached that differently? As you've thought about that, what would have made that more successful?
I mean, I think if something had been pre-done for them, or if there was like a use of shapes and just like a pencil using shapes or something, they wouldn't have had to like worry about the 3 different kinds of crayons. Also, just sorting it into the pile itself probably was helpful. I don't know if they needed to use the color sorting. I just thought it was helpful for them to use it to quickly identify like keywords that were helpful. And then I realized that's awesome visually, like, oh, pink, where, great. But now it's taking all this time, and more importantly, they're getting a little confused about like the circling process. So yeah.
So one of the things you might just reflect on is when you start to see things going south and not going well,
Yeah.
what is your response? Is it to amp up and to just kind of plow through it? Or is it to pull back and say, okay, this isn't going well. I'm going to, and I understand there's this tension where you need to get a video in where you're showing all the elements, right? And you want to make sure that that's happening. But for the sake of learning, which is more important, it would be good for you to make that timely accommodation and go, okay, time out. Let's all do a red crayon. Let's all start with the red crayon, and I'm going to model for you what I want you to do. Because learning the dance between facilitator and teacher happens when you can switch, when you recognize, oh my goodness, okay, they're not doing so well with this independent activity. I need to take the reins back, and I need to do some more modeling so that they can see what it is that I'm asking of them. But I wonder if sometimes you get discouraged and just want to get through it because it's not going well, and so you just kind of ramp it up and go really fast, and then nothing gets accomplished.
Yeah, it depends. I definitely do get anxious about it, and I'm like, oh crap, I wish they would just kind of like be able to follow along. So sometimes it depends like how much they can follow along. If I feel like there's some hope that they just don't understand because they need more practice, I often will try to give more examples. I've learned now I just need to like chill and accommodate when things aren't going well. So in that lesson, I should have altered the crayon thing, seeing that wasn't going well. But I was kind of fighting with myself, thinking like they've already started it and they've done like half of it with the crayons. And I wonder if that's going to now become confusing for them in some way. So then I just figured it's easy. One thing I can fix is moving Sean to a more appropriate group. So I tried with that, but next time if I have to just like, hey guys, let's just start this over again, and maybe I'll try that because that might like help set a better tone for the rest of them.
And even, I feel like even if you had the ability to like bring them into a circle, like on the floor or something, if there's a place where you have a group space and you could pull them in so it's a little bit more intimate, and you can actually like sit with your paper and say, okay, I'm going to show you what I mean. But when they're so when they're always at their desks, there's so much opportunity for them to get distracted and not really. But if you're in a small circle on the floor, you know, and you're actually doing it, then they're actually saying, oh, okay, I understand. Or you could also use a document camera. I don't know if you have one, but anything to kind of get it right in front of them would have been helpful. That being said, you planned for a lot of different opportunities to use different resources. So you had the color, you had the pair or partner work, which was great. You had them sorting, which was good. Again, it's bumping them up on Bloom's taxonomy. And then you had them writing. I feel like it was a great combination of lots of different you know, ways for them to learn. So I felt like that piece was really an outstanding. Did it go as well as you wanted? No, but you planned for it. And so that is just something to tuck away in the back of your mind, what you learn from it. Because that's what this clinical is about, right? You want your learners to be learning, but you also want to be able to reflect on it and go, okay, hindsight is 2020, but moving forward, here's how I'll handle this. So okay, building on prior knowledge. So you actually talked at the beginning of our video about how you, this was kind of review. You knew that they knew punctuation, but it sounds like the exclamation mark maybe was the new piece. And so you kept saying, and I felt like this was good, and I'm going to talk about this in representations and explanations. You kept saying it was strong emotion. But maybe going forward, if you feel like they have strong foundation of prior knowledge in one area and you're introducing a new concept, focus on the new concept more than you do the others before you have them work on it all together.
Okay.
Because what we know about learning theory is that the first step is that kids are going to accommodate in their schema for the new information. So they know about a question mark and they know about a period, but now they have to make room for this question or for the exclamation mark. So it isn't until they have some practice with that they begin to assimilate it into what they already know.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the one where it was between the period and exclamation that they did struggle. And they've seen all of them before. They've seen commas too. Comma is like, oh my God, they have so much trouble with commas right now because they just need more practice with that. But I stuck to the 3 ending punctuation, and it has been a review, but they very easily said telling or asking before, and differentiating the subtle things. I really should have focused more on maybe I could have nixed questions altogether until we focused on the subtle differences between periods and exclamation points, and then mixed in like, okay, now let's look at all 3 and like try them together and sort. So yeah, I think you're right. I think because that's the one where they struggled, we should have focused on that a bit more in particular.
That's okay. I mean, you just know now, you're just gaining insight, so it'll all help you going forward. So proficient in that one. Representations and explanations, I felt like you worked really hard to make this an outstanding one. And like I said, even though it didn't pan out the way you wanted, you did plan for this. So you had pictures that were paired with punctuation, which was a great way to introduce that. You were acting out some of the emotions as you were saying them, which so both of those things are so developmentally appropriate. And then you had the video, and you were doing a lot of modeling. They had a lot of different opportunities to work with this concept. It just, because of the time element, I think, and because you weren't making those accommodations to fit what you were seeing, is where it kind of fell apart. But overall, I think you actually planned for it better than you think you did.
Thank you. That actually makes me feel much better, because I was like, I saw it. I was doing it, and I'm just, oh God. And then I saw it again. And I'm like, oh no, I wished it had gone better.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next one.